Welcome to Marvel Maniac, an MCU Aftershow. This is your host, Eric Cicada, aka Mr. Honest, back with you for another movie review after show, and it's one that's kind of a bit overdue. I have always liked this movie. Saying that, I haven't seen it as many times as I think I've seen a lot of the other Marvel movies, and there's no good reason for that, because Captain Marvel is one of the most powerful heroes in the MCU. And her introduction was such a big deal. And to me, I think they introduced her at a great time, helping set up future stories, whether or not those stories follow through in shows like Secret Invasion. And maybe they could have picked up a little more on that story in the Marvels. I've seen it. So we're going to be talking about all that stuff later. Next, Miss Marvel, The Marvels. And we're going to break that down because we never did that before. But this is about the origin. This is about the first Avenger. You know, you think that because they put it in the MCU timeline right after Captain America. So Cap is the first Avenger. Technically, he just was never named an Avenger. The name of the Avengers, we find out at the exact end, is from Carol's name on her jet that she flew. So the whole movie, we really know, we know Captain Marvel is under the name as Verse, not Carol. I mean, even the subtitles didn't give her the name change from Verse to Carol when that was uncovered. So yeah, this is going to be very spoiler-filled for Captain Marvel. And if I drop a spoiler, I guess, for the Marvels, I'll let you know to skip ahead or something. However, I feel like most of you would have seen that by now, but I'm not going to assume anything. You know, I just want to talk about this movie for a little bit and how I think that it does a really good job of like setting up the Avengers if you really want to go back and put it in that order. But I also think that actual viewing order, like the way it came out, is the way to watch Captain Marvel. Personally, I think you should start right after Infinity War or Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's a nice in-between. They had those two movies to buffer us in between Infinity War, where, may I remind you, spoiler alert, what happens in Infinity War, half of all life is decimated. Okay, so we see Fury at the end of that movie giving out some sort of a signal with a special logo. As a comics fan, you know that's Captain Marvel. As an audience member, you're like, who the heck is this, and what does this mean, and what's going to happen? Well, we knew Captain Marvel was coming, but getting that introduction in between was perfect. They'd never done such a close origin story to Avengers movie. And it's not like she was the main character of Avengers Endgame. She was a big player, but she wasn't there for the meat of the film. She was here for the beginning and the end, but we get to see a new type of hero come from Earth, come from the MCU in Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel. And she inspires a lot of people by what she does in Endgame, which we're going to be talking about next Wednesday, the 15th. It is our 4-year anniversary. Now, we've almost made as many episodes as I had before I started up again, and we've almost doubled it. However, I think it's really important for me to celebrate that landmark and acknowledge that time and be ready to continue the way we've been doing the podcast forward until that celebration of those episodes that I did over the course of 3 years. We're going to be making that in days, so in weeks. I don't know. We're going to make a great podcast. And you know what a great podcast it does? It doesn't tell you about it being a great podcast. Captain Marvel, it's delivered the story to you in a way where it's very out of order, so it can be a little daunting, but they want to get you, I believe, in Carol's mindset, Verse's mindset. We want to see it from her perspective first, and we don't know anything about her, so the story being told is to her is the story that we believe as an audience as well. Now, we know of the Kree. The Kree is a big Guardians of the Galaxy enemy. We got to see a character that we know actually from the Kree, because this is a movie that takes place in the 90s. We got to see Ronan, the Accuser, and he doesn't have his face paint yet. I think that's what makes him the Accuser, and he he has a big moment in this movie where he's attacking Earth, and just at that very moment, Carol Danvers is learning the full extent of her powers. Ronan was about to drop a space nuke on Earth, and Carol Danvers, just in time as Captain Marvel, slipped in, brought that rocket back out to space, and saved the world. Little do we know, there's times in the MCU where the world was about to end and saved, and some people don't even know about it. Some heroes' antics like Iron Man are more public. Also, his failures are as well. However, in this movie, Carol Danvers, we don't really get what's happening at first. Like, oh, she's the Kree. That's why she has powers. We learn along with her, and that's why I like this movie. It kind of sets it apart from other Marvel movies. It can be a little confusing because if you're going into this when it was 2018 or 19, between Infinity War and Endgame, you're like really wanting answers. You want answers at this point for Infinity War. We are mainly hyped for that movie. So as an audience, this is definitely a filler, fun, laid back movie, but it actually does introduce a lot of plot points for future MCU stories. I mean, Nick Fury's eye. The time he actually did get scratched in this movie, though, towards the end of the movie, he says it's just a scratch. So I don't think that was actually him getting the iconic eye thing. Maybe we can assume that Goose did it later. However, this is the movie where he loses his eye, and the de-aging is fantastic. I don't ever think about really age. Like if Samuel L. Jackson was old in this movie, it just wouldn't make sense. But I don't see him. I didn't see him as old until this movie. Then I'm looking at a picture of him right now as current Nick Fury in the Marvels, and he's looking great for his age, I gotta say. So it just you get woken up a little bit to, man, I'm gonna look in the mirror one day and it's gonna be like that. So to break it down, we got this skilled pilot named Carol Danvers. And this is the story that we learn in bits and pieces. She has a best friend, Maria Rambeau, who she goes out and parties with, and she's a fellow pilot, fellow hero. And she has a daughter. Her name is Monica Rambeau, and Carol has a big relationship with her before she ends up leaving Earth for 6 years. Now, how does she leave Earth for 6 years? Well, something goes wrong. And it all has to do with Carol's boss / main pilot captain. Her name secretly was Marvel, and she was working on a light speed engine. Like, I don't remember, like the first time I saw this, I did not realize that even after they revealed it, that Wendy Lawson, aka Marvel, is a Kree. And she's not a bad guy. I think she wanted to help the Skrull. That's why she was trying to build it, to help them get out there, and in a place where the Kree cannot find the Skrull. That might be a topic I've overlooked a little bit while watching the movie, but they are on good terms the whole movie, and Carol wants to go on this big flight, and it ends up in disaster. So that Carol accidentally crash lands this ship. It's scattered everywhere. Lawson, aka Marvel, dies, but before she dies, tells her the truth. We do learn at some point in the movie she has a hidden space station, which I think is so cool. And I really like a lot of the action actually takes place there in small hallways. Small hallways are a signature move for Marvel movies that want to see really honed in ass kicking. And there's a good mix of that between this and her learning to fly. And at the moment where she learned to fly, it was really cool. I really like that. I love the integration of Nick Fury. I love that Phil Coulson. I'm glad that he's in this. He doesn't even look that different. He always has been like young looking anyway. He looks like next to different, like not really even different at all. Forgive my raspy voice today. I really like how they subvert your expectations in this movie. The good guys are bad. The bad guys are good. If you're newcomers to the MCU watching this, it can be a good twist that the Kree are evil. And it's really cool if you watch all this in order, I guess, from timeline order. Not the order it came out. You would see this first and then Guardians of the Galaxy later, and you would have recognized Ronan. It's interesting. I like exploring different viewing orders, especially with the multiverse expanding and all that. So whatever viewing order makes you comfortable and it makes sense to you, I'm all for it, honestly. I think this is another really good, mentally, I like thinking about where these heroes are at, what drives them, what gets them where they're going to go, aside from just jumping into a pit of acid and turning into that sounds like a villain. was thinking of the Spider-Man joke where Jamie Foxx, aka Electro, was talking about like, man, we got to stop falling into giant vats of things like supervillains do. Carol Danvers is self-discovery. She doesn't know who she is. She's confident in who she is when she is being who she thinks she is. If you follow, she really believes her name is Veer. She believes she's from the Kree and that the Skrull are evil. They've been in her mind. And she learns more information when Talos, the also underdog main character Skrull, who we find and give major sympathy to by the end, who was just trying to protect his family, becomes a fan favorite. A lot of this is followed up on in Secret Invasion on Disney Plus. I'm not going to spoil too much. I'm not going to say too much. That's a little bit closer to the story that I guess you'd be expecting from this movie. I'm not going to diss it, but I'm not the biggest fan of that show. And it has nothing to do with my favorite director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Samuel L. Jackson, a.k.a. Nick Fury. He's the saving grace of most things he's in. Unfortunately, he had to be the main character and carry it. So I'm only mentioning this because it does deeply connect to that show. We are really interested in learning about the Skrull after Carol declares and ends the movie on going with them to find them a new home. So we could talk about that most likely when we talk about the Marvels. I don't want to spoil too much of that conversation because we do get some follow-up to that. And we'll recap Secret Invasion maybe when we talk about the Marvels or before. So yeah, we'll keep it tied to this movie for now. All we really have to know is Captain Marvel saved the world from the Kree, almost dropping a giant nuke and destroying like the Earth, from what I imagine, and that's why Earth has been safe up until the Avengers, where Thanos has to learn the same thing, that Earth to court Earth means courting death. That's whatever Thanos' lackey said at the end of the first Avengers, right? For me, witnessing a very powerful change of someone holding another person down, and it's really the Kree holding Carol down, trying to make her forget that she got her powers from the Tesseract, not from the Kree. So the Kree trick her and lie to her and tell her that they own her powers. That realization, when she realized she does not, her power is her own, she doubles, triples her enemy's strength, and she goes full Super Saiyan is what I'll call it, if you're a Dragon Ball Z fan or not. She just goes nuts. And I love that moment where she rips that thing off her neck. I think it's a fantastic setting up for a great character. The Rambeau, Monica, the daughter, and Maria, the mom, because we see variants of Maria Rambeau, multiple variants. So I don't want to spoil that all the way, but she comes back and into play. And of course, Monica is a huge player in Phase 4 of the MCU. She is in WandaVision. She's older because of the snap. And she's in WandaVision, and this took place in the 90s, right? And also the Marvels. So she grows up, and we already kind of know to love her character by the beginning of this phase. She grows up so fast in front of us. She's one of the people that kind of shows us firsthand what it looked like right after the snap. And unfortunately, spoiler alert, she loses somebody that we know that she just missed it in the 5 years she was gone. So sort of a little bit more of the chaos back, and this movie sets all that up. Thinking it's just an in-betweener film to throw while we wait a year for Endgame, this movie took its own course and introduced us to different cosmic entities, made us pay a little more attention to some things we've already been introduced to, like the Kree, and introduces the Skrull as a helpless, planetless species. They can't shapeshift. They have to infiltrate planets, or they have nowhere to live because the Kree destroyed their planets, making them the bad ones. We see Carol join the right side, obviously, but the right side becomes a little bit blurry when we get to present day 2020s, and that's a long time. In between. I feel like I'm setting up a Secret Wars episode. Secret Wars. No, not Secret Wars. I'm sorry. Secret Invasion. Secret Wars will have 5 episodes probably. Secret Invasion. Yeah, I'm thinking I want to talk about that soon. And at least integrate some conversation about it into the Marvels. And just kind of talk about like what we liked about it. What maybe could have been done a little bit differently to connect the shows like they did before. So, but I like that we get to see the Kree and the Skrull again. I get their names mixed up when I'm talking about this movie all the time. The Skrull are a big player to introduce in the MCU.
And we've only seen a little bit of the Kree, so it's good to see those different factions operating with different intentions and motives and learning a little bit more about them. I'm surprised Fury never hit that beeper that Captain Marvel gave him. He must have really knew something bad was coming if he didn't use that beeper on the day of Avengers, the first one. He didn't call her in. I mean, obviously, if you look at it realistically, the films didn't know they were going to do that. I made Captain Marvel a 90s movie, and then, they didn't know at that time. But you can retcon anything in, and maybe there's a good reason Fury doesn't beep her. Maybe he did beep her, and she shows up late, and she sees the destruction, and she asks Fury what happened, and he gets to tell her about the Avengers, giving her more of a peace of mind and coming back later than sooner. The beginning of this movie, it was the first MCU movie after Stan Lee's death. God bless the extraordinary creator of the Marvel Universe, the comics, and I've always said, I'm so grateful that he got to see so much of what we loved about his stories put to film and how important his stories are and were and will always be. Also, the fact that she lands in a blockbuster video. Yes, us millennials might have a few nostalgia feels from that moment. Video stores were really cool. In any way, maybe there will be like video store museums one day. Like, this is how the men and women of the 90s consume their entertainment. The video store was a place. Oh, okay, I'm not going to do that. But I miss video stores, even though I don't need them. The raspy voice today is insane. I'm being too self-aware. And we're making our episode run a little longer. We're at like 15 to 20 minutes. Do you like these longer episodes or shorter episodes? This is a shorter episode. MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. What do you think of this story of the Skrulls and the Kree and this origin story from Captain Marvel? Do you think it was worthy or could it have been better? MarvelManiacPod@gmail.com. MarvelManiacPod on Twitter. I'm going to start getting my other social medias like TikTok and Instagram back up, and I'm going to be posting clips that you've heard on the show and clips that you will hear on the show to promote episodes. So there's a lot coming up. I think Captain Marvel was an essential to have in the MCU, and I like how they introduced her, and I really appreciate how she came in Avengers Endgame and kicked ass and turned the tide of the battle. Some people didn't love it. I loved it. Personally, that was my favorite. So I want to tease my next episode with you guys. It's going to be this Wednesday, of course. However, the times of our shows are changing. For now, unless there's a show that really calls for different, all our episodes, Wednesday and Friday, will be released at 6 a.m. Central Time. That's every episode we do. The Wednesday, Friday episodes, they will, from this upcoming Wednesday, will start at 6 a.m. So we got earlier starts coming, and I just want it all to be the same. I was doing 2 time slots for 2 different days, so I hope that's a good time for you. Email me if there's a better time suggestion you have for the episodes. For me, I think that really works right now, but I am very interested in your thoughts. So anywhere, MarvelManiacPod at gmail.com, social media, hit me up. One final favorite moment from the movie that comes in the top of my head. Two moments. The moments where she keeps standing up and she's talking to the Central Intelligence, shows her every time she's been knocked down, and then we get to see every time she stands up, which is so motivating. And I love that part. And I also love so much the Stan Lee cameo, which is him practicing his lines for the real movie he goes in around that time called Mallrats. It's a great movie. I would definitely check it out if I were you. And then that moment from the trailer where she punches the old lady Skrull, but we didn't know she was an old lady, like there was a chance. She almost had an Austin Powers moment where she actually punched an old lady in the face, but it was a Skrull. And yeah, a lot of memorable little moments from this movie, and it's really good at setting up future stories. I think I said that, but I'm thinking of the Marvels. I'm thinking of Monica Rambeau. I'm thinking of Miss Marvel, which we'll talk about. Do you want to see us do every episode week to week, or do we want to just do a wrap-up season summary type episode like we did for Loki season 2? Let me know. I'll open to any and all suggestions. I really appreciate you being here. It means the world for you to be listening to me about my favorite movie cinematic universe. And we're going to be going into Avengers Endgame for our 4-year anniversary episode coming out this upcoming Wednesday on the 15th of January, 2015. It's going to be a me episode, no guests. I'm just going to be talking about the movie, reflecting on it, Infinity War, its greater story. It's one of the greatest movies ever made, in my opinion. Great follow-up to Infinity War, and I'm excited to just talk a little bit about it with you guys. I believe Captain Marvel still has a future in the MCU, big leader of the Avengers, and we are only hoping that we keep seeing her. I see some negative reactions to her sometimes, like for not smiling or something like that. I think she's a badass, and I really want her in the movies. Don't scare awesome Brie Larson away from a franchise that I think will even grow nostalgia over the next few years. Okay, we'll see you this upcoming Wednesday for Avengers Endgame, and until then, Avengers, disassemble. And by the way, P.S., I don't believe that I actually forgot to talk about Goose, the cat, the flirkin. What the flirt? That's incredible. We did talk a little bit about it at the beginning, but oh my gosh, I just need to go back and post-credit scene this as he spits up the Tesseract. That's our post-credit scene. I love it. Again, see you later.